This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games. Welcome back, campers. This is your junior counselor, Sean, and this fine fella sitting to my side, why, it's junior counselor Josh.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Camp Video Games. I don't know why I sound so haggard every time we start.
Did you wake up in an alley, perhaps?
Well, yeah, I ate some of those wild berries that have spots on them. Woke up in an alley, pockets turned out, wallet missing.
Well, I'd like to say that I am $5 richer because I robbed you.
God, God darn it.
Campers, let's focus on the issue at hand. We're talking about Breath of the Wild, the Gorons, Valrudania. We're talking Death Mountain. We're talking Fire and Brimstone. We're talking the first volcano I've ever wanted to visit.
Yeah, wanted is a strong term. There's some things I love about the Death Mountain culture. There's some things I hate about the geography.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of where I land. That's like my bottom line.
I'm going to guess it's because the terrain is so treacherous that it kind of forces you to just follow paths. Maybe that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, you're getting a little ahead, but I think that is kind of the nail in the coffin for like mountainous regions in games in general. Okay. It's like you usually open with a few regions of just like, oh, this beauty, all these fields. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this mountain, you got to stick on this path. One quick like side note or experience of that is Death Stranding does this same thing, that like the terrain gets more and more treacherous as you go on. So like right when you finally like, I'm having fun. It's fun to move in this world, because that game's very much about like learning to agree with its movement.
Sure.
And then like you get to the last quarter of like the main map of the game, and it's just like snowy mountains that are just like, this is a nightmare again.
Yeah. where they have like modified the environment to like, you need to like reciprocate for every single like peculiarity that they like throw at you.
Yeah, and this is nowhere near that extreme, but it gave me a little bit of that vibe.
Sure.
To revisit this.
Camper, if you're new here to Camp Video Games, we talk about video games, shocker, and their video game adaptations. So if this is your first episode because you just love the Gorons and
I wouldn't blame
Death
you for
Mountain, welcome. And so every other episode we go between Breath of the Wild and Zelda, the animated series from 1989. So just a refresher, and in case you've just been listening to this every episode and you forgot what you're listening to, that's what we do here. So let's like kind of do a little bit of a refresher from where we left off.
Let's do
Breath
that.
of the Wild. So we defeated Windblight Ganon on Va Meadow with the Rito people, and that's the giant birds, the Falcos, if I may. And so Link is now going to complete the final divine beast on his sacred checklist. Valrudania. It's a big old salamander crawling all over Death Mountain. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit.
A little, but
maybe I'm getting behind myself.
Well, it's worth noting that we've been following a path as recommended by Nintendo's guide for the game.
Yeah.
Which is not a path I've played through. This is my third time through the game. And I don't know why they chose Death Mountain last. But the only like sort of correlation I could think of is that it's last in the first game. It's like Death Mountain is usually sort of a peak you reach, and then like it's the last part of the Light World, and Link to the Past is another example that just came to mind. But I don't know.
It seems like it seems like the most imposing environment that we've encountered thus far. Unless you're like particularly afraid of heights or of water or of sand and camels, like the big fiery volcano that Link literally jumps straight into to board Valrudania.
Oh yeah.
So it seems like it's like you think about like Revenge of the Sith, it kind of ends on that. What is that, Mustafar, the fire
Oh God,
planet?
who knows?
Hold on, let me just give myself a wedgie here.
I saw a fun video the other day that was the scene where Obi-Wan and Padme show up to that planet in Revenge of the Sith, and every time Obi-Wan's on screen, it plays "Sexy Back" for like 2 seconds.
Man, and how?
That was a dumb sidetrack, but anyway.
So I can see why Nintendo would think that, and also like I died the most in Death Mountain. Just because there's instant death all around you. If you misstep once, you can just fall right into the lava. And not, of course, dying in Breath of the Wild doesn't have very serious repercussions because they're very generous to players in that way.
This is maybe a point for me that I could make a few notes in general about, like, I don't know, the design of the game. I was starting to tell you before. I was like, I'll wait till we're kind of in the episode that I'm staying away from too much Tears of the Kingdom commentary. I'm doing my best because this is the point we're recording now that game's coming out.
Yes.
But
this is our first discussion of Breath of the Wild post Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
I still have not touched it. Josh is what, 100 hours in, you think?
I'm about 80 to 90.
Yeah.
And I'm about halfway through the story of the game. And this leads me well into my note that both this game and that game, that they let you get way overpowered way too quick if you have fun exploring the world, that when you finally get back to the story, it's pretty what's a good word I'm looking for?
Underwhelming?
Yeah,
Not
like
challenging?
Exactly. The challenge of it is like you're just hacking your way through things. So like I was that way in this playthrough. I'm kind of at that point in Tears of the Kingdom, and that's like I'll go back because I started some of our conversations with Breath of the Wild comparing it to Elden Ring, which I did not like very much.
Right.
But Elden Ring, the difficulty never led up to the point that I gave up. And it's more linearly designed. They're like, oh, it's an open world, but there is like a path that there's some gatekeeping of like difficulty that Nintendo decided not to do in their open world design.
There's a big open world, but there's a lot of funnels that kind of like aim you right at where they want you to go to hit those major story points.
This game, they try to do a little bit of that with there's like some moderate enemy scaling by region, but most of it is the like hidden experience point system in the game that just bumps up their health and not really their difficulty as you spend more time killing them.
Right, where it makes it that like the more common weapons you'd find from weaker enemies will be of very little use to you when you then encounter these higher class enemies.
Yeah. Basically, as much as I love Breath of the Wild, loving Tears of the Kingdom, but both games are like, once you have a full armor set that boosts damage and you learn like how to dodge the enemies, which is way easier than FromSoft games, you're like, I'm a god. This is easy.
Let's see, in Breath of the Wild, the attack boost armor is the Zonai armor.
It's the barbarian armor.
Right. I think I'm mixing in a little bit of a
some hearsay you're getting from Tears of the Kingdom.
No, there's on YouTube there's a great Zelda theorist that I've mentioned before, Zeltic. I believe it was a Zeltic video where they go into great detail about how the barbarian armor is indicative of the Zonai people, which are absent from Breath of the Wild, and like physical traits that Link then exhibits as he's wearing the armor kind of links up with the aesthetic of the Zonai people, as far as we know. If we had not played Tears of the Kingdom, perhaps. In any case, we're going to talk just the formula of how Link approaches these 4 divine beasts as the game goes. So Link enters a new region of Hyrule. There's always going to be a cutscene of the first like up close view of the divine beast as they're doing, as they're either rampaging or reigning or swooping around. You always get to see the imminent threat to that people. And then Link meets the elder of the tribe, and then Link is accompanied by a modern descendant of one of the champions, who then helps them board the divine beast. If we're going into Death Mountain, it really starts at the foot of Death Mountain. If you want to talk about this experience,
Yeah, I want to do like just a little bit of storytelling in my experience this playthrough of that, because that is so much of Breath of the Wild, and especially if you're on sort of video games Twitter as Tears of the Kingdom came out, it's like the storytelling of everybody's experience is like making these games sort of like a meme moment when they come out. You know?
Yeah.
Because my experience getting up to Death Mountain, I know I just said like I feel like a god because I'm so overpowered, but I had I named my horses after my cat.
Buddy,
things that I call my cat. So I had a horse named Buddy Cat and one named Bub Horse.
Nice.
And I was riding up to the Eldin Tower, which is the tower in the region that unlocks the map for Death Mountain.
Right.
And you have to go through like this like slog gauntlet. For anybody that like is on the video version, like I'll just like put my heroes map. Like I don't know if I went like the de facto way, but like there's kind of a path up the side of a mountain. It's just covered in fire enemies.
Right.
And I was just riding my horse along and literally swung at like a red chew jelly guy.
Yeah.
And like somehow it hit my horse in a way that knocked me off. And then when I swung again, I killed my own horse.
No, the elemental
brutal.
The elemental chews when they've been defeated, they explode.
I think it might have been the explosion of the red shoe, and then I was just like on a war path up this mountain. It was like I'm gonna murder every last one. Of
you went like John Wick for your cat.
I just went on this John Wick rampage up the side of this mountain because I was so mad my horse died. I'd never had a horse die in this game before.
Oh,
it was
man.
brutal.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
And the fact that it's named after my cat, I was like, why did I do this to myself?
Well, if you want to send flowers, go ahead.
So that was like my march up to the Eldin Tower. Then I started through like, the path I'll bring my map up one more time for anybody visually watching. I apparently did not follow the path. I went through there's like some hot springs off the path.
Yeah, the hot springs are great. If Link goes into the hot springs, it'll gradually recover your health.
Yeah,
which is a nice touch. Also, fun fact I learned about the hot springs: if you drop an egg into the hot springs, it'll turn into a hard-boiled egg.
Yeah.
And I love hard-boiled eggs. I raise chickens, guys. So there's a lot of hard-boiled eggs in the fridge right now. And if you want to eat a lot of hard-boiled eggs on a weekly basis, get yourself a bottle of Bachan's Japanese barbecue sauce. A little drop of that. Bachan's, not a sponsor of Camp Video Games.
A little bit of that extra Camp Video Game promise. You get that Camp Video Game experience.
Oh yeah. This is a segment we abandoned in one of the early episodes. This is Sean's unsolicited cooking tips.
Yes, and it's just back now a little bit. But another fun thing about the hot springs, there's a very sweet Goron boy there. Who he's half underwater and he speaks in like bubbly speak. It's pretty cute. Anyway, I love the Gorons so much.
Yeah, why don't you describe the Gorons?
Oh my god, the sweetest, happiest boys you will ever meet.
Yeah, do we see any female Gorons?
That was one of my questions in my notes. They don't make a stink of it about like the way the Gerudos do, how it's like part of their lore. Like we only have a man born every 100 years.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he's an evil king. And the Gorons are just kind of like, they're I don't know, like telegraphed to you as sort of masculine, but I
Yeah.
don't know if they address gender really. I just know these sweet boys like eating rocks.
That's the truth there.
Man, I like stopped and my jaw dropped when I just kind of like casually walked up to one that's mining the side of a hill as you're going up the mountain to
Sure.
Goron City, and he's just humming some tune
Aw.
in like a 30-second loop or so.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. Like I sat there for a minute being like, this has got to be from the series. And no, he just humming, just having like, at least that I could tell. And I was just like, man, some voice actor, they were just like, just hum a tune in Goron speak, or Goron tone, you know?
The music of the Gorons when you're in Goron City, A+, man.
I guess, yeah, since you bring that up, I'll go into that too, that I forget if we discussed this in the episode about what's the Rito Village? It's just called Rito Village, right?
I believe so.
How they're like the music physically describes like the geography and the culture
Oh, absolutely.
so well, and that's always been a thing in
Zelda specifically is very good at that.
Yes. The example, like the first, like most obvious example comes to mind for me in the series is like the first time you go in Zora's domain in like Ocarina of Time. This like crystalline
Yeah, like a vibraphone. kind of-
like sounds like sort of echoing off of watery
Yeah.
cavern, and like that's been the staple of the series all the way through. And so like the Rito Village, you have this swirling like I forget what the instrument is, but it like sort of swirls up the scale and back down in a way that feels like flying.
That's wonderful.
And in the Goron one, you have a lot of slides in the notes.
Big trombone.
Which feels kind of like clumsily going up and down hills in a mountain. And
It
there's, like,
matches, it matches their attitude and
Yeah.
their swagger, kind of like, because like the Gorons, like to kind of go further into like how they look, they remind me of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to a degree, except they're like rock brown, earth toned, and they seem to have rocks protruding from their backs and like over their bodies. The older they get, the craggier they look, but so when they move around, like they've got these really large limbs. They're a bit they're a bit primate in their like proportions, but they've got a friendly like swagger to them is how
Yeah.
I describe them. And the music matches it perfectly.
Yeah, and then like to sort of match their physicality, there's like a slight hint of like a Oompa feel musically,
sure.
which is like for lack of a better descriptor, like you could think of as like the cartoon music for like following a fat guy around.
I could see these Gorons wearing like lederhosen, like pounding beer.
I think of like culturally, like what they most align with would be like somebody like a Appalachian like hill person miner who's just like a hippie who smokes weed all day, you know.
You're basically talking about my family tree.
I'm talking about like our people in this region. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Gorons, they're mining. They're a mining people. They dig into Death Mountain to procure their delicacy rocks, and also like precious stones. That is the center of their commerce. You can find a lot of like deposits in Death Mountain.
Yeah.
So
and
it's-
hammers to
which
get to them.
yes, absolutely, that's their tool of choice, the big rock smashing sledges, boulder breakers, drill shafts, all tools that will render a boulder into gravel with just one hit, which is really useful, especially one of the things, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, if you're trying to harvest precious metals from these like ore deposits, if you use a bomb and you're on a cliffside, you run great risk of blowing it right off the cliff, and then you can't, reap the benefits. So the sledges are essential if you want to like really maximize your income. your earning potential.
Yeah. And there's like rock traders as well once you make it finally to the city. This is a serious rock driven economy and society and culture. Yeah. And speaking of, yeah, eventually you get to Goron City, which is I love it. We've already talked about the music, and one thing I really love is the carving in the side of the mountain.
Yeah,
of Daruk holding a little baby Goron child.
Could that even be Yunobo?
I'm not sure. Like I'm not really sure like what the age.
Yeah, it looks childish.
Are, but they mention I think at some point that it's supposed to be Daruk at least.
Yes, yes.
But just holding the happy little kid. It's just like every village in this game, I'm just like, I love it here.
Yeah. They do a great job of setting the scene and making you like appreciate all of the detail that's been put into it. I want to address, in order for Link to reach Goron City by traversing up Death Mountain, you cannot do it without the aid of a fireproof elixir, unless you bring enough food or like healing items to just allow, because once you get to a certain point on the mountain, the air burns around you. And if this was Ocarina of Time, you'd need to put on your red tunic. But in this, if you go to the foothill stables, right at the foothill of the mountain, one of the NPCs that you'll encounter there is a woman named Gale, and she'll sell you fireproof elixirs, which makes it much simpler to actually reach it. Because I had some difficulty. I didn't think to talk to anybody, and I just tried making my way up this playthrough, and it became a hassle where it does seem like prohibitive to the players, where you need to jump through some hoops in order to get to Goron City.
Wait, are you saying you didn't use anything? You just plowed through, or you had to figure out how to cook your own stuff?
I plowed through. And
that does sound painful.
I burned through like 2 pages of healing food, of prepared food items.
Yeah.
Just because Link's health drops off like a heart every 5 seconds or so.
Yeah.
And it was stupid. It's a good thing I don't record myself playing.
Well, I don't think I've.
It's embarrassing sometimes.
I don't think I've played this section of the game without a fireproof elixir. I don't know how. I did stumble upon the woman at the foothill stables that you were talking about every time.
I would say you're better at talking to NPCs than I am.
Well, I love them. I love all of them.
Yeah. I am just as antisocial in video games as I am in real life.
Well, and that's kind of how I used to play, and I've started slowing down now that I sort of record and take notes, and it makes me more engaged with the people in the NPCs of the game and the story, all the little side stories, which is such a big part of this game.
Oh yeah.
There's people who critique oh my gosh, the story's so minimal, blah, blah, blah. It's not if you just go live in the world,
right,
and
right,
pay attention.
If I want to stay with the cooking metaphor, the main quest is a steak, and all the side quests are the seasoning, and the butter, and the herbs, and the smoke, all the things that add to the flavor of the base material.
And if you just grill the hell out of a plain old steak till it's well done, you're not gonna have as good a time. It's it's all right. It's not the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good thing that Death Mountain is so abundant in valuable rock, because the Flamebreaker armor that Link can purchase in Goron City will cost you more than 3,000 rupees to get the full set, I believe.
Yeah, man. It's a
kind of
little
bummer.
pricey. 600 for the armor.
2,000.
2,000 for
so
the
that's
helm.
26, and I believe the trousers are 700.
And 700 for the trouser.
So 3,300 rupees.
I think I'd been saving up to unlock the final fairy fountain, and at this point, it was like this is one of the last things I had to do. I was like, all right, just give me all the armor. It's fine.
I ended up selling. I had a huge surplus of monster parts, and I was able to just sell like moblin fangs and that kind of like stuff that you amass just from combat.
Just the
and
pure
I
scraps.
I made enough rupees to buy the full set.
Nice.
So when you get to Goron City, you're gonna see Varudania crawling along the side of the mountain.
Mm-hmm. Least impressive roar of the divine beasts.
You'll want to talk to the elder Goron of the city. He's a one-eyed, gruff, like patriarch named Bluto.
Bluto, I love you, Bluto.
Isn't that the name of the
Popeye's nemesis?
Yeah, the mean guy who's always trying to steal olive oil.
Yeah.
Olive oil has a baby, right? Sweet pea, or there's like that baby that her. She was always. I just remember, like, do you think Bluto would have like been that kid's stepdad if he like caveman stole olive oil, or would
he'd probably be a deadbeat of a stepdad if he was.
Is that Popeye's kid, like, with olive oil? Hey campers, if you're deep in the Popeye the Sailor Man lore, don't you fill me in, campvideogames@gmail.com. Side note, I loved the Popeye arcade game. Did you ever play that?
No, is that what is that, like a beat 'em up?
It's I wish. Holy shit, that would be awesome. No, the Popeye arcade game. It's a single screen. I believe they even had an Atari port for it, and you're Popeye, and there's all these platforms that you're trying to. Let's see, you're avoiding Bluto. You're trying to find spinach, which then gives Popeye his muscle so that he can punch Bluto off the screen. And olive oil's at the top of the screen, and this is the busy part of the game where olive oil is throwing hearts off of the top of the screen, and it's Popeye's job to catch them all before they hit the ground while avoiding Bluto, while also avoiding. There's a witch character who would show up and throw stuff at Popeye. I think they throw bottles at him, and you can punch them. It's a fun game.
Wild.
I had a dentist who had arcade games in the lobby because he was specifically.
He had a Popeye arcade cabinet.
He had a Popeye arcade cabinet, and he had Zaxxon, which is an incredibly fun space shooter that was at it was like an isometric view. It was very strange compared to other shooters at the time, but incredibly difficult. So it made it less scary because what is it where he was like a pediatrician dentist?
Yeah.
So he only worked on kids. So he knew how to make kids excited to go to the dentist because it was a free play arcade cabinets.
Yeah.
And I went to the dentist a lot because I had really bad brushing habits as a kid.
Well, speak of the devil, I need to book myself a dentist appointment. Anyways,
campers, if you're a dentist, why don't you give us an email? Get some discount dental work for our dear sweet junior counselor. So back to Goron City. It's kind of ramshackle. It looks like sheds put together out of like scraps, and everything's it's a very function, not form. It seems to not embellish really like aesthetically, but to really just be built to serve their basic functions. They're not glamorous people, but they are hardy and practical.
Yeah, man, I'd live there.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much you got into the local culture and the local color.
What's your favorite character you met in Goron City?
I don't know about characters because like they all just make. Oh well, there's the guy at the gate. I forget his name, but he greets everybody as if they're the hero. from 100 years ago.
Drac.
He's really cute.
Yeah.
And then there's the inn. This was like, it stood out to me as this is just like a weird thing in video games that I don't know if I'm at the right place if I'm got the visual on screen, but like the inn will offer you a massage.
Yes.
And it's like,
Oh, when it cuts to the black screen where you hear Link getting the massage.
yeah, and Link makes this scream of terror that you don't hear anywhere else in the game.
Let's see if we can get it through.
I forget how to do that. Okay, we can do if you can ask for a bed and a massage. You can ask what the massage is about, but I'm just gonna go right to the massage.
Yeah, absolutely.
See if I can capture it here for our listeners.
Is this one of those Chinatown massages?
Well, let's let Link get his massage, and then I'll just acknowledge some thoughts here. All right. They call in Volkan, the guy that you meet outside, to give him a massage, like one of the biggest elder Gorons. And here goes. The screen goes black.
Oh my god.
He screams in greater terror from that than anything else he experiences.
Yeah, he's jumped off mountains. He's had to fight monsters 10 times his size. And that's the greatest terror is just like having his vertebrae like realigned.
And I don't know, it just stood out as kind of fun. Oh, you get not only extra hearts, but you get an extra wheel of stamina from it. But it reminds me, I don't know other games that do this, if this is just like a trope, but Final Fantasy VII Remake does this in Wall Market. Like, you have to game some local characters to get access to some stuff. It's kind of a new component of it from the original. And one of them is it's funny because I'm conditioned to say massage therapist. But this woman is definitely like a masseuse.
Okay.
Because when you say masseuse, it has like sort of this negative connotation where like she gives you a palm massage and it's clearly like this orgasmic thing that's going on. Like, it's very sexual.
Wait, do you see Cloud come?
Kind of.
Whoa.
It's really weird.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to finally play this game.
I've been telling you to take my PS4. Anyways, it just reminded me of that experience. It's like, what is it with video games and like massages and making them extremely weird?
Well, video games are made by people, and it seems like the people who make video games tend to have a specific idea of how massages are supposed to go down.
I guess so. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on like the local color here in Goron City. I love it, just like every other town in the game.
And no disrespect to our masseuse listeners. Play camp video games while you've got
They're
a client.
LMTs, licensed massage therapists. I dated one for a while. It's a very sticky wicket with them.
All respect. I hate massages. I really don't like being touched by like licensed people. And I'm not very good at receiving that kind of care.
Right.
I'd rather just be in pain than to be massaged.
Anyway. So when and where exactly do we meet our little fella of Goron City? I know Bluto has back pain that you have to help resolve. Speaking of,
Bluto, he's like kind of at the center of Goron City. I mean, he's hard to miss. He's like the biggest, and he's got the eye patch, and so when you meet him, he says that Yunobo has gone missing because he went to go get pain pills or pain medicine for Bluto's back. And it's funny, like, just like this is the problem that their elder is like, that's keeping them from defending Goron City from this rampaging monster, is that he's got like debilitating back pain, which is like, like if if you're not in good health, you need to take care of yourself and not push yourself farther, because then you'll just do irreparable damage.
Or does he have an opioid problem and he's manipulating everyone around him
Oh my god.
to feed his addiction?
You think he's like playing like Medicare? Like he's like gaming the Medicare
No,
system?
he's just like, geez, like he's figuring out he can score a fix by being like, I sure could help if I just had my fix.
Oh man, I feel so dirty now for like aiding and abetting. Like yeah, so Yunobo went to the the abandoned North Mines, where which is a vault, which is really just a cave that's like on an island in the middle of a lava field.
Which at this point, I think you're kind of supposed to do a little bit of like crater hopping and
I
like
didn't
take
do
down
that
some.
at all.
I was like, I've got Rivali's Gale. Boom, done.
I found a mine cart. This is a fun part that you might not have found yet in the game if you're going along as Nintendo suggests. There are mine carts on tracks that where if you put a round bomb into the basket in the rear of the cart and detonate it, that's the propulsion for the mine cart. So the more bombs you can drop, the quicker you'll go. And this one basically circles around the entire lava field. And then I found a great off point to then Rivali's Gale to just go to the thing. Yeah, because there are these updrafts in between all of the islands, and then there's kind of like an enemy gauntlet for Link to like work his way through. So this is it's a fun, if you want to have that battle challenge, it's a pretty good section of the game because there's insta death all around you in terms of the lava being fall damage is non-existent. There's just instant death, and all these enemies. A lot of archer Lizalfos, fire Lizalfos. So, shoot them with an ice arrow, instant death on them. But, or you can just circumvent it completely and just go to the blinking icon on your map.
Yeah, I went straight to whatever the cannons are that you have. I don't know if you just have to use one to help Yunobo. But I just remember going like boom, straight to that.
Yeah. So once you get to the vault and you see that there's a boulder that you're unable to blow up with your bombs or with your stone crusher, and then you'll see off. This is the way I did it, at least, where like I went to the center, I saw the puzzle that they're displaying, and then you go to a cannon and hit it with it's another bomb powered tool that Link finds, and then the cannon detonates the boulder that's blocking the entrance to the vault. Yunobo, he's inside. Let's talk about Yunobo.
Yeah,
he's a sweetheart. He's like rosy cheeked. He's like timid and gentle, but he's also extremely powerful. And when you first see him, you'll see that he's like protecting himself with this like red force field, which we learn is Daruk's protection. But what you said you had some thoughts on Yunobo before we started recording.
Yeah. Well, just like weird little production detail that like caught me off guard. It just like almost was like a jump scare when you first approach him. It's the only time I think you hear outside of a cutscene voiceover dialogue that's not Zelda. And even Zelda, I think it stops you and does like a cutscene. And it was just like very jarring.
Yeah, that's true.
That you hear his voice from behind the thing, and I was like, what is going on? This is Zelda. We don't talk outside of cutscenes. And even then, it was new in this game. And that started my brain ticking about I've spent enough time with this game, and now Tears of the Kingdom, I'm up to 350 hours between the two, that I'm like, all right, I can start critiquing the rough edges.
Yes, I think you're at a good starting point to critique it, yeah.
That this feels, I love the Goron City culture, the music, all those details, but the actual scenario design of this segment of the game feels the weakest to me. It feels the least coherent and the least fun.
Okay.
Which we'll maybe get to in the approach to Varudania. But that was the first kind of clue of something feels just off here from the rest of the game.
it seemed to be mostly focused on the spectacle of the lava and of like the environment. I agree with you on a lot of those points where this is not my favorite segment of the game.
No.
But it was one I was looking forward to because aesthetically it is kind of like overwhelmingly cool. I like fire. I am not a convicted arsonist, but I am like fascinated with fire. It is just like pyromaniac is the word I was looking for. Worrisome when I was a kid because I didn't have respect for the power of fire. But now that I'm an adult, I just I burn like lawn refuse and that kind of stuff.
You get it out of your system.
Yeah, in a healthy way.
Yeah.
But I do really want to start a bonfire with a flaming arrow, which I think we should probably do at the end of this season.
That'd be a good little capture to have. We rescue Yunobo, and then we get that intro where we he's a pretty sweet boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think he is a good contrast to the rest of the Gorons. Like he works for me. I got something I want to discuss if we have time, but I'll wait till we get through everything else. So. Now that we've met all of the little champion buddies, and we're about to meet the final champion.
Yeah. So as soon as you free Yunobo from the vault, he rushes off to give the painkillers to Bluto. And if you go back to Goron City, Bluto will gift Link 3 fireproof elixirs, which I was like, can you give me the armor set, please?
Yeah, really.
Like, God, dude, come on. But then with his man, now that Bluto has his fix, he points out the giant statue of Daruk, and that triggers Link's memory, where we will then see one of Link's early encounters with the champion Daruk of the Gorons from a century past. We're going to be covering all the memories in one of the final episodes of our Breath of the Wild discussion.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave that right now. Daruk is a really great champion. He's got white hair. He's a gigantic warrior. And we basically just see him demonstrate the power of Daruk's protection as he repels a magma boulder bomb.
Is that the scene where he's piloting Varudania?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's super cool. I like Varudania's design. It's a fun one. Salamanders are in video games. I'm sure that there's like an alchemical or mythological reason for the salamander being associated with fire so often. But I'm also reminded of I'll bring up Secret of Mana again. In your magic subsets, there's the salamander that controls all the fire attacks, which I just think is an interesting
it's named always Salamando or Salamander.
Something like that, yeah.
And this is like, again, me just being very nitpicky about like there's just a little roughness around the edges with like kind of this scenario of the game that I love Daruk as a character. Like I was just like getting real nitpicky about like the voice acting. Like everything else is like, for the first voice acted Zelda game, and they did it in like so many different languages, I'm like, everybody did a pretty decent job, you know? But then there's just like a few weird deliveries by Daruk that like, I don't remember the exact examples. Wait, I might, well, let me see if I wrote it down in my notes. Where
specifically from the memory.
Okay. I think it's in this scene where he says, the line's just like, at the end, he says something to Link. He's like, right, little guy? He calls him little guy. And it should be like that. It should be like, right, little guy? And instead he goes, right, little guy?
Just
like, just little like inflection things. And I'm like, there's just something that just didn't quite land in this segment of the game. And it's like little details around the edges that added up.
The voice acting tends to be a sticking point for a lot of criticism for Breath of the Wild. I've made mention before that, like, while I think the voice actress herself has a wonderful voice, I'm not totally sold on Zelda's performance.
Yeah, I forget if we discussed it. I heard somewhere else about like the non-committal British accent.
Those are the exact words I use. It's non-committal British accent, and it's it's just a matter of like having the right like director for those types of segments, and it is what it is.
I honestly, most of it works for me. I think Mifa and Urbosa are great.
I love Mifa's voice. That's convincing to me.
Yeah,
as the timid gentle healer character. Yeah.
And
Urbosa's great too. Gosh, yeah.
As much as I can't stand ravioli, for a tropey character, the voice acting's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is just where I was starting to it's a little rough around the edges at times. I can live with it. That's like me. I make people talking on recording for a living. So I'm being a little nitpicky there, but anyways, I would have directed it a little different. Sure.
So, okay. Now that Link has saved Yunobo from being trapped in a cave. What a nightmare.
That would be I've done a serious spelunking 8-hour trip. You go down in the cave.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to go to the bathroom anywhere until a break in the middle. You're not allowed to leave. You have to go forward. And I loved it once I was down there. I was having panic attacks for 36 hours leading up to it.
Yeah.
Until I was an hour in. And it's terrifying. And they'll tell you stories your guides about if you fall in there, you'll die. Some people came in here, they died.
Cool.
Yeah.
I read Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado, which is basically the story of a man who gets revenge on his enemy by getting him drunk, taking him down into a wine cellar, and then chaining him to the wall, and then building another wall around him so that he's just sealed in the wine cellar until he dies. And I was in, I believe, 3rd or 4th grade when I read that story, and it legitimately left an impact on it made me claustrophobic. So the fact that Link has now saved Yunobo from just, would he run out of oxygen first, or would he just starve to death?
I think he would, in that particular scenario, he'd starve to death because he's right near the entrance that's just piled with rocks.
Yeah.
So oxygen would be fine.
Yeah. And it seems that, the Gorons, they are rock eaters, but they don't eat just any rock.
Yeah.
They actually, there's a side quest where you can recover some prime fillet of boulder.
Yeah.
That it's a prized food source of the Gorons, and it they did a good job of making it look appetizing.
What am I thinking of? What is I'm thinking of a moment in some other a show or a movie or something of having to eat your way out of something. It sounds it's got to be a Simpsons reference that I'm losing.
There's there's Homer's hell scenario where he's chained to a chair and there's an assembly line of donuts coming at him.
And he just never gets tired. No, I'm thinking of being stuck in a pit and be we'll eat our way out. Anyway.
Did you ever see Strange Brew?
That might be what I'm thinking of. They drink their way out
one of the McKenzie brothers gets dropped into a beer tank and he drinks his way out. And he's I gotta take a wicked leak.
And he's isn't he huge after?
Yeah.
Great.
Oh man.
Yeah. I don't know how problematic it is, but as a kid, I loved that movie.
I watched it not too long ago. It was on YouTube, and it holds up.
I don't think they're probably better about that.
Well, it's Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas. If you're not familiar, they had it's kind of like a Wayne's World progenitor.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Prototype of Wayne's World from SCTV, which is the Canadian SNL. And Bob and Doug McKenzie. Take off, you hoser.
Yeah. I loved that movie.
Oh, I didn't fart, eh? That was the chair. I could do that until we lose all of our subscribers. So thank you for subscribing to Camp Video Games. And be sure to tell your friends. If you like what you hear, you can also join us over at Patreon, patreon.com/Camp Video Games. I promise I won't try to do too many more Rick Moranis impressions.
Let's move to the Bridge of Eldon.
Eldon region, that's taken from Twilight Princess, I believe.
Yeah.
Where that first came about.
It was the bridge. The bridge is up. Do you have to shoot it down?
Right. This is
This is where you get taught that mechanic of like how to shoot Yunobo.
Yunobo goes off to Elden Bridge. He's waiting for Bluto to join him, but Bluto's back starts hurting again. You're right.
Bluto is jonesing. He's a little addict.
A dope fiend.
Yeah.
Man. What a shame.
Not to shame you if you are, but there's a certain type of behavior that comes with it.
Yeah, there are resources if you need help. And it's okay to admit that you have a problem because everyone's got their problems, and judgment is for the unworthy.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
all the Sacklers should burn in hell. Let's go to the Bridge of Elden.
You join up with Yunobo at the other side of Elden Bridge, which it's up and Yunobo's being attacked by moblins. And he's just got his Daruk's protection up, and he's like, he's like cowering. Mm-hmm. He's not
the cowardice of his character I like and has done well.
He's it's really interesting because he's a descendant of Daruk, and it seems that the apple has fallen a little bit farther from the tree.
Yeah. It's a nice little trope to play.
Yeah. He's got so much responsibility. I mean, he's wearing a scarf of the champion's tunic color, that sweet blue, but yeah, he doesn't have the heart of a warrior. He's a gentle soul, and Link rescues Yunobo from these moblins, and then after a little discussion where Link has to excuse Bluto for his back pain again, Yunobo agrees to work with Link to get Link onto Vah Rudania, and in order to do so, Yunobo volunteers to be the cannonball. He climbs into a cannon. Link maneuvers it to hit the bridge, hits the bridge down, and then it's basically it's going to be like an escort mission up the side of Death Mountain. And I know where you're coming from with that sigh, because there is a lot of like, it's a chore to some degree, but there's actually a lot of fun that could be had in this segment if you embrace the challenge in that way. So when you approach Vah Rudania, it releases a bunch of like sentry drones that are we're straight up in Metal Gear Solid territory again, where you're avoiding the security cameras. Yeah. And Yunobo will follow you as you. I think there's different ways you can communicate with Yunobo, because he'll stop on command and then he'll come on command. He gives you 3 options. I think it was like through the eyes. If you like look at him, he'll come to you. You can whistle to him and he'll come to you. Or there's a third option that says you can use mind powers. And I don't know what that. I went straight for whistling because I understand.
I'm pretty sure
whistling.
It will force you into whistling.
Okay. That's the option that I chose anyway.
I've done it every time. Yeah. With whistling, so I'm assuming like those are just sort of like
they're having
jokes
some fun.
To play with. Yeah. I haven't gone down those like conversation trees to see what happens in my memory that I recall, but no, I'm glad you made note of that, because I totally didn't even know that.
Yeah. And this segment is also very reminiscent of Leon and Ashley in Resident Evil 4, where it's again the hero of the game, Leon Kennedy. He's rescuing the president's daughter from a rogue cult that's doing some biohazard research. It's a strange story when you try to say it out loud. But
I feel guilty to say I probably said it before. Resident Evil virgin.
It's
so that's all you to make that connection.
It's high on my priorities to at least get you to play Resident Evil 1. The remake of Resident Evil 1 is an amazing experience. Yeah. And it might sell you on the rest of the series. But so in Resident Evil 4, there's a few segments where you've got a unarmed, non-aggressive NPC following you, and you can either like hide her in a trash can so the enemies won't find her, or you can have her follow you or have her stay. And so you have the same way that you interact with Yunobo, where it's like, if I whistle, come on. If I whistle, stay. That type of situation. And so you can just destroy the sentries as you are working your way up Death Mountain, because there's 3 cannons that you want to reach, where you'll fire Yunobo at Valrudania as it's scaling the side of the mountain, and it's repelling it further and further up until it retreats into the lava pit in the center. But there are some environmental resources that you can use to destroy the sentries in the shape of boulders that you can stasis and knock them, and then hit an arrow so that they'll fly at the sentries, or you can magnesis some metal doors or crates into the sentries, I just had a mighty Lionel bow and I shot shock arrows at them, and I was able to kill them pretty quickly as well without being alerted. If the sentries are made aware of your character, they will then go into like panic mode, and you'll be barraged by flaming boulders.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly simple, straightforward, where you hit Valrudania with Yunobo 3 times. It goes into the middle of the lava pit, and then Link just without a second of hesitation.
Well, I want to give like my own thoughts on this before we go to that, because I do love that part.
Yeah.
So I don't want to lose that, but because this connects to what I was saying earlier about like the scenario, this whole Death Mountain, Goron City, Valrudania scenario just feels clunky compared to the rest.
Yeah.
You already heard me groan about like combining escort stealth mission. That's just not my thing, really. Like I enjoyed playing Metal Gear Solid 1. That's the only one I've played.
Yeah.
And like, unless you're gonna be the cream of the crop like that game, like stealth just is like, like it just is like, I'm just like, let me play the game.
Yeah. Well, I think the main problem a lot of people have with stealth games is that it requires just like sometimes there's no busy work. It's just waiting.
Yeah, like when it's just patience and waiting of like, yep, they are on a point of their scripted path that I have to wait through. Yeah, it's like, and that's kind of how this felt.
Agreed.
And like the whistling is a little clunky. It's the least well sort of like explained and telegraphed approach to one of the divine beasts. The rest are like, hit these big glowing things. They're maybe a little oversimplified, and it's like you can barely even get hit.
Yeah.
But like this one is like, this is very different than what we've done until now.
You're completely right, because thus far we've had Link ride on Sidon or ride on the bird warrior whose name I don't remember. Tiba?
Teba's completely forgettable.
Or seal surf to Vonda Boris.
Yeah.
And in this case, yeah, it's more of like a level than it is a boss or mini boss fight, right? Like where you're still interacting with Valrudania, but you're not up close and personal with it like you are with the other ones.
Yeah, and it was just the most tedious of the approaches. I felt a little, even for the third time, there were moments where I was like, wait, what am I doing? Where all the other, especially I think like the Zora's Domain one is done so well, where it's like you go through that whole path and you're blocked from just climbing because it's raining. The entire experience of that scenario, it feels very like this is the one designed to do first. And this one just feels like, we gave this one to the freshmen. We let the JV team design this.
Yeah.
And they like just weren't quite in sync with the rest of the team or something.
Are we ready to board Valrudania?
Yeah. You talked about the way he jumps in.
Yeah, like Yunobo is at the top of they're at the cliffside, like looking into the lava field where Valrudania has now like gone into its retreat, and Link is just like
limbs flailing. Yeah, I love it.
Jumps right in, and it's great. It's like that's the Link I want. I love the impetuous, no thought for the future, just at the moment, just going.
Yeah, it felt like very like action hero moment, and like it's weird. You get like this amazing 2-second action hero clip, like almost. I definitely the one in the Gerudo Desert
Vonneboris.
when he comes in the sand seal and it's just like this fluid motion of like jumps off his sand seal and action jumps into action with Riju or whatever. And this is another great example. Love just like this very dramatic final approach into the Divine Beast. Is 2 seconds of just that extra polish on top.
Absolutely. Okay, so I will say that Valrudania is one of the most straightforward divine beasts. It's okay. So every divine beast, as we come to get used to now, this is our fourth and final one, unless we're going to do the DLC, which there's sort of a divine beast hidden in the pudding there. But this one only has like 2 different settings. You can tilt it to 90 degrees one way or to the other way, and so there's not that much 3-dimensional thinking compared to other divine beasts.
Yeah. Another thing that felt like, did you give this to the JV team? Like, don't overcomplicate yourself.
Yeah, I know. One of the coolest pieces of advice that I ever absorbed was from the creators of Doom, the video game. They often talked about how it's important to design your first level last.
I literally cited this at work yesterday.
It's an incredibly smart piece of advice where you think about, like, it's the first experience that you're going to have. You shouldn't be figuring it out in the first and so E1M1 from Doom is a perfect level.
Yeah.
It's one of the, we'll talk about Doom in a future season because there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot.
Well, and I've heard this cited as the original Super Mario Brothers,
absolutely,
being designed that way, and it's like
it tutorializes without telling you.
Yeah, that, and like people talk about like that level is like the college like game developer, like everybody knows.
Yep.
Level 1, like you said, E1M1 and level 1 of Mario Brothers. This is textbook how to tutorialize without like stopping to tutorialize.
Absolutely.
And that's where I first heard that example of design your first level last.
Yep.
And this feels, and that's like what I was saying about Zora's Domain, because it points you to that first.
Yeah, and it seems like they've now had what's the final divine beast. This is probably the first one they designed.
Yeah, like let's not go too crazy. Let's feel out the space.
Because at this point we're already sold. We've already gotten so much enjoyment out of the game. And
like they're probably going to go to this one third or fourth.
Exactly. Yeah. So fun little observation I made today. Rudania, it's an anagram of Darunia, who is the Goron chieftain from Ocarina of Time. Just a fun little, connection. We've already seen Vonneboris, that's named after Naburu, one of the other sages. These are all sages from Ocarina of Time. Meadow.
There's no Rito in that game, so I don't know if it's directly.
Yeah, that one escapes me.
Somebody from Wind Waker, because that's where the Ritos were.
There's that punk Kokiri kid named Mido.
Oh, that's a good point. I don't know.
And then Varuta, which is Ruto of the Zora people. And it's a fun little thing. So you enter Valrudania. This is a fun actual segment, though. As soon as you enter Valrudania, the door closes behind you, and it's like pitch black, except for the glowing malice eyes, and there's a blue torch, and it's just a fun kind of poke around in the dark type of level. You'll find a torch. You'll find everything you need. If you came in unprepared, they'll provide you with a bow, arrows, a torch, so that you can accomplish all the necessary, tasks in order to progress.
Funny thing is, I think I even commented on my playthrough on stream. I was just like, I think they added this to be like, we got to put something difficult in here.
Yeah, I know. It's a charming level. I'll say that it's a charming, adorable level.
Yeah, it felt like, why in the dark? Like it didn't, the design concept wise didn't feel like earned in any way.
I want to. I believe that there was a design element on Valrudania where it's got these vents on its back, and when you access the map, which is the first kiosk that you find, then the vents open, which then lights up the place.
Oh yeah.
But the puzzles in this one are fairly straightforward. The only one I had trouble with was there's this door where there's a Sheikah eye that you can look through. and all you need to do is light an arrow and shoot through this eye into a torch that's like deeper in the room, which it just took some poking around to figure it out. But I mean, there's not very much complexity to any of these puzzles. So another instance where when you're on the exterior of the divine beast, just the like amazing vista that you have. The view is so cool, especially when you tilt, because then like, you know, your whole perspective shifts along with the beast, and it's a lot of fun, and it's for the Switch, it's very graphically impressive. Just I again, like, you know, like my like heart just like grows a couple inches every time I see fire. I just think about all the problems I could solve with nice fire
with through burning. I'll make one more light allusion to Tears of the Kingdom, because we brought up multiple times like how we like the feeling of like you're still in the world when you're in the dungeons in this one, whereas past Zelda games it's like you load into the dungeon, you are in the dungeon. That is done, I think, even better.
I'm
when you get
so
to
excited.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Right. So, I mean, I might just reiterate, like, I have intentionally held off from playing Tears of the Kingdom so I can focus on Breath of the Wild for this discussion. And so once we're done with Breath of the Wild, I'm so excited because I've had to block like #Zelda from like my feed just because I really want to have a fresh experience. You invited me over the night that you got it, and I was tempted to say yes because, like, you know, what better way to experience Zelda than with your best pal?
Yeah.
But you know, I need to feel some new Zelda content. You know, at home
I think it'll be worth it.
I'm
all
so
fair.
excited.
I've been very careful to like any allusion to it. I'm trying to be very light.
You're a champ. Like, you're an absolute champ for sticking through and for respecting the spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you have found all of the terminals inside Valrodania, through the encouragement of Ghost Daruk, who is such what a wonderful spirit. I love him. I love his voice. He's one of my favorite champions. I just love the big, gruff, gentle giant who's still able to like snap your neck by sneezing too hard.
Mm-hmm.
You then, on the back of Valrodania, you're going to fight Fire Blight Ganon. I really don't like the designs of the Blight Ganon creatures. They're like cybernetic. They're not inspiring to me. They don't like have that.
They're not visually memorable, really,
not
in
at
any
all.
way.
It's all like the amalgamation of Sheik Attack and Malice. Like it's you know, thematically, it's incredibly coherent. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But from an aesthetic point of view, it is just not that satisfying to me. Fire Blight Ganon, he's got a big sword and he throws fire pebbles at you. Like, whoop-dee.
Yeah, and I told you before I forget if this was part of the recording or not, so I'll restate it, that like at this point I'm so overpowered that I'm just like throw on my like attack boost armor. The only struggle I had is like when he's flying around, I was like, how do you get him down on the ground? And like, as soon as he's on the ground, I'm like, spin, 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 spin. Yep. Okay, that gets him to his second phase. And then I think, what does he do? He like does this absorbing thing that like if you have half a mine, you like throw a bomb and he'll explode.
Exactly.
Because the Octoroks do the same thing.
Or if you want to go back to the Goron, the boss of
the Dodongos?
The Dongo, thank you.
Yeah.
The Dongo, where they breathe in and you throw a bomb in. And it's like, this has been ingrained in the Zelda player's like psyche at this point.
This is in my Zelda brain.
Yes.
I'm in the mountain place with the Gorons. The boss is going to want me to feed him bombs.
You know
so
what?
I feed him one bomb, spin, 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 done.
And Andross in Star Fox also does that trick. Where when you're fighting the final boss, I've played more Star Fox 64 than the SNES version, so I'm more familiar with that one. But when you're fighting the big floating Andross head with his two gloves, he'll do the suck attack, and if you just shoot a bomb into his mouth, same exact thing. So Nintendo loves throwing bombs down people's throats. So noted, Miyamoto, Anuma, what's going on? So we both beat Fire Blight Ganon pretty much no problem. his second phase. He's got that suction attack, bomb, EZPZ.
Yeah. And then even like in master mode, same, it's like the same problem of like you get so overpowered at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like the difficulty curve, it like is like extremely difficult at the beginning and then plateaus off real hard.
Yeah.
Except this added just like annoyance in master mode of the boss's health refill if you take too long.
Yeah, I'm not messing around with master mode.
Yeah.
I really want to enjoy this game.
Yeah, it's like I only did it back during like the pandemic out of like I got to do something with my time.
Yeah.
But like
little did you know you were conditioning for camp video games.
Yeah, and it's like you hit a certain point of what's sunk cost fallacy of time with master mode, where it's like this isn't challenging, it's just tedious.
Yeah.
But I'm so deep in, I'm just gonna plow through. And it's like I wish they could find a better way to design hard mode for these games for people who want it.
Yeah.
I want something like halfway between here and Elden Ring. For,
Okay.
like, the grown-ups.
Well, I know that Miyamoto and Anuma are listeners, so guys,
get on it.
Come on. And okay, so once you have defeated Fireblight Ganon, you have freed Varudania, and you've put Daruk's soul at peace as it is, and he gifts you Daruk's protection. This is basically the way the skill works, right? You put your shield up, and then Link is encased in Daruk's protection, which is like a red force field, the same thing Yunobo was exhibiting when he was a cannonball.
All of the special powers, now that we have them all, very again another very like OP thing in this game.
Yeah, right. So now we've got all four. So we've got Daruk's protection, Mipha's grace, Urbosa's fury, and Rivali's gale. So now we basically have an extra life, we have a super attack, we have power of flight, and we have like temporary invulnerability.
Yeah. And I think they are great for like completionists who just want to explore the world as like fast and freely as possible. But for the duration that's left of the actual combat story side of things, it's just like you are just mowing things down at this point.
Yeah. And I will say that aesthetically, I really dislike Daruk's protection.
Every time you pull your shield
every
up.
time it happens, like I like seeing a dude with a sword and a shield. I don't need to see the magical enchantments going on around him. I mean, I'm very particular with how my video game characters look. If I have a choice in Ocarina of Time, I always like to play without a shield just because I like seeing Link's sword on his back if it's sheathed. I like just the aesthetic of, you know, there's a kind of like the archetypal hero that, you know, sword in hand, you know, going to go defeat the dragon. It's one of the things that appealed to me from The Legend of Zelda from the very beginning, where I love the idea of feeling like I'm a knight in shining armor, or, you know, a ranger. I think if we were to give Link a D&D alignment, he'd be a ranger.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now we have defeated the 4 divine beasts, or we've converted the divine beasts back to their original operating system, and all 4 are now honing their lasers at Ganon's lair inside Hyrule Castle. So we've got the cardinal directions all just pointing straight to the center. It's telling you this is where you go next.
Yeah. Very clear direction mapping, like we talked about at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And at this point, Zelda tells you. She interrupts and tells you. I think I don't know if it's like as soon as it teleports you out of Varudania. It's because there's 2 things that happen once you have them all. Zelda tells you, "Come, Link, get me in the castle," and then
you've been doing this for 350 fucking hours, Link. Can you throw a homie a hand?
But okay, that's the joke people make. But then the next time you teleport, because within I forget when the DLC launched. It was pretty close, I think, to the game, if not with it. And like the game just sells with it now.
Yeah.
So the first time you teleport, it triggers the DLC too, and she goes like, "Link, by the way, go back to the Shrine of Resurrection and do this 15-hour side quest before you come rescue me." And it's like, okay, you don't. You want to hang out in the swirl with that pig for another? Okay. I guess it's been 100 years. 15 hours is nothing. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
well, for us, as we continue through Breath of the Wild, the next step for us is to go to the Lost Woods to claim the Master Sword and then to approach Hyrule Castle. So in the next episode, campers, we are going to do just that. We're going to go into the wonderfully mysterious and ominous and spooky Lost Woods, which is a little psychedelic and a little groovy, but at the same time, it's just some of that old world magic in there.
Yeah, I love those boys. I can't wait to go meet them.
And, we've gone this far without really talking about the Master Sword that much, so that'll be in the next discussion. So I hope you like sword talk, because I've got some notes. I've got one of my favorite illustrated books it's just a book called Swords, and it's just pages and pages of illustrations of swords. And
so we are well prepared.
I'm about to talk about swords for an hour with my buddy Josh here at Camp Video Games.
I'm just going to talk about the cute little Koroks the whole time.
I'm going to listen to you talk about it too.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Tune in next time. Join us over at Instagram at Camp Video Games, and be sure to give me an email, campvideogames@gmail.com, if you've got anything you want us to talk about in future seasons, if you want to tell us how wrong we are about all of our Zelda lore.
All of my opinions are right.
If you want to throw us a couple bucks, go over to patreon.com/campvideogames. Thank you, campers.
Peace out.
Oh. If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.